The only real God is the one that you believe in. Start looking for the God in others. And if you find you're tuning into a wave, well then I don't know much about being saved.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, friends.
Welcome into another episode of Spiritual Philosophy Chatter with the Joneses. I'm Danny Jones.
And I am Samantha Jones.
And this is episode 94.
That it is, 94.
What is our topic?
This is superpowers.
Cool.
Yeah.
So it's funny because I immediately think like as a kid watching Super Friends.
Super Friends. I don't think I saw that.
Cartoon where it was like, sometimes you'd have separate cartoons like Batman and
right.
Robin, and you have Wonder Woman, but there was like Super Friends in the late 70s, I think, where it was just a cartoon where they would go to the League of Justice all the time and meet. And
oh, that's cool.
So I think Superpowers when I think of Super Friends and Superpowers.
Well, those characters absolutely have some of the things we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But for just being silly, too.
Yeah.
So we don't need to expect, like,
no.
busting out a cape and flying around the room. Or...
No, unfortunately, I can't do that. I wish I could. I couldn't fly around this room, though. That would be hard. Anyways.
All right. Well, before we hop into that episode, do you have anything from last week?
Yeah, let's talk about a couple things. So last week we did telepathy. I didn't get to work on it this week. I wanted to work more on it, but I didn't. But we'll have to do that, try and work on that ability together, too, because, you need a friend.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, but I'd like to. I'd like to learn how to do that because that's a superpower. That's on the list.
For sure.
We won't talk about because we did last week, but that's on the list of superpowers. So, but then I did talk to a couple of people, and I had already had the idea, and this just kind of pushed me more into it, is to do an episode on animal telepathy. Because I think that there's a lot of, trainers, like Cesar Millan is one of them, who I truly believe uses this ability to train. There was a yogi that I had talked about a few weeks back, Saguru, I believe was his name, and today I watched a video of him handling a cobra. And you could see that the cobra was not upset. It was fine because this guy was talking to it. You could tell. So I think that talking more about animal telepathy and how it works and all that would be a great idea. And
that's essentially how you communicate with animals, right?
Yeah.
Sharing kind of pictures and
absolutely.
messages. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that would be good. And then we had talked about the remote viewing app that I've been doing. And I want to say I love this app. I'm having so much fun with it.
Right.
It's teaching me a lot about remote viewing. So I highly suggest it. Again, it's Remote Viewing Tournament. I did not know that this was a strength of mine, but out of, let's see, right now it's 1,800 people that are doing this tournament. I'm number 45. Wow. I went down a little bit. I missed 1 week. It was like I knew the right one, but then I second guessed myself. I shouldn't have second guessed myself.
Right.
But this app is kind of showing me that it's not as hard as we may think it is. All it is just really believing that whatever you're seeing or hearing or whatever, that it is actually going to help you with that picture, and you'll get it. Right. I think that the remote viewing is actually one of the easier psychic abilities.
Yeah, I think that's, by the way, very, very impressive.
Thank you.
Out of 1,800 people to be at 45, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'm shocked. Happily shocked.
I wonder how that, who's the gentleman that we watched a video of, younger man, blonde hair?
Aaron.
Okay, Dowdy? Aaron. He talked about that informational highway kind of thing. And when it comes to that sort of thing you were just explaining, I wonder if that's kind of what's also involved. It's like there's this energy, like informational highway that's happening. Yeah. That you can literally, it's out there.
Right. Yep.
You know what I mean? You put the thought out there, it's going to be out there. Yeah. So if you're searching for somebody's, I don't know.
No, I know what you mean.
I'm wondering how much that has to do with it.
I wonder, too, how does this work? Because also on this app, you can judge other people's, what they draw, what they write. And I've found this to be really interesting, and that you can do multiple times a day. But with that, like, it shows you on the first screen what they wrote, or, you know, pictures or whatever. And then you go to the next screen and you have to, just like with yours, which one is it that they were drawing for you? And some of these are so accurate that it just blows my mind.
Right.
You know, and they're like, some of them are just shapes. And so that's helping me too to understand a little bit more of, okay, what am I looking for when I'm tuning into that code, that number at the bottom of the screen.
That's the part that boggles my mind.
Me
still.
too. Because I just look at the number and I just say the number in my head a few times and then things start coming in. Mm-hmm. It's just as easy as that. So,
That is
no, wild, isn't it? But, so yeah. So, again, check that out.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Remote viewing tournaments app.
Nice.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Are we ready for episode 94?
Let's do it.
All right. Superpowers.
Superpowers. I got this idea because of telepathy is actually considered a superpower. Mm-hmm. And I also started thinking about, okay, well, if that's a superpower, and actually psychic abilities just in general, channeling, clairvoyance, those are all considered superpowers. If those are classified along with some of these other things, like levitation, moving objects, whatever they may be,
right.
Are those things possible? Now that we know that psychic ability is possible, and remote viewing is possible, and telepathy is possible, now I want to know what else is.
I'll be the guy in the room to raise my hand and say, yes, I believe it.
I do too.
I believe it.
Yes. I do too. So let me first of all read what a definition of superpower is. And this was hard to do because there really isn't a definition for a true superpower. You know, this is more of like fictional. So this is what Wikipedia says. Superpowers are a pop culture term for an imaginary superhuman ability. There is no rigid definition of a superpower. It may be used to describe anything like flight, super strength, telekinesis, super speed, teleportation, etc. But then you go on in this article on Wikipedia, and it said something very interesting. It said, science fiction eventually becomes science fact.
Yes. And so that's a great statement. Now, I'm not talking, and I don't think we're talking about like Marvel and DC type of movies, you know, not that extreme. But there are things that can correlate to certain powers that people have that can kind of be dramatized in the idea of these movies.
Right.
All right?
Yeah.
So, like, let's take X-ray vision. That would be my choice.
Yes. Shocking. Very shocking.
Okay. But anyways, telepathy is a version of that in a way.
Uh-huh.
Because with these codes, like even in the movie that we watched, The Men That Stare at Ghosts, they're asking him, okay, what's in drawer K9?
Right.
And it's just a long filing drawer, little small, looks like a library. Remember the Dewey Decimal?
Oh my gosh,
I'm dating myself. These little drawers. And so they're just telling him what's in it. Well, you're kind of looking through something, but not through it, but with your mind.
Yeah, with your mind. They put them in those little lockers so that, you know, they could say, this is locked with a key. There's no way you could have, because the pictures were in there, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, absolutely. These are all things that, you know, we've been taught through movies that they're not real and that they may be extreme. But I don't believe that they're extreme. Like, you know,
they're just not dramatized like that.
They're over-dramatized, yeah.
And they're not running around in tight leather suits.
No, that's a shame, but they're not. Let's see. So then when I started looking for, well, how can I bring this into a more spiritual realm than science fiction, right? I came up with, I was thinking, well, the word supernatural, it goes along with this. It is pretty much the same kind of thing. So supernatural is a phenomenon that, the phenomenon that aren't subject to the laws of nature. So anything that isn't subject to the laws of nature. So those are the types of things that we're going to be talking about are like supernatural superpowers.
Okay. But we're just calling them superpowers because it sounds fun.
Yeah, exactly. So I asked our listeners how many of them actually believed that that superpowers were possible, and 60% said that they strongly believe in these abilities, at least some of them.
That's good.
Isn't it? Yeah.
That's great. open-mindedness there.
I think so too. I think the world is definitely becoming more open-minded.
Yeah.
We went shopping the other day for the first time in a long time, and so much of the stuff that we saw was like not just peace and love and all that, but psychic stuff, tarot cards and everything. And I'm like, wow.
Third eye.
We really are expanding here, you know? So when I started doing research on this, I was thinking about who's a good example? Where could I see some of these things actually maybe happening? Okay. I've never really been into magic or anything, but I saw David Copperfield live, and I've done a couple of things like that. But one of the people that has definitely always stood out to me for his craziness is David Blaine.
Yeah.
And so I went to his website and I was looking at some of the stunts that he performed. And the thing about David Blaine is that, well, first of all, let me tell you. Okay, so he's an American illusionist, endurance artist, and extreme performer is what they call him. Okay. But my true belief on what he's doing is he is just so connected and believes so strongly in these abilities that he's able to pull these things off.
I believe it.
There's no magic going on here. There's no illusion. There's no mirrors. There's no anything like that. He is actually doing these. I feel that. I really do. I really truly feel that.
I mean, he's still like a sleight of hand artist, because that's what impressed me with him right off the bat with he came along, because I was used to seeing David Copperfield, Chris Angel, these guys that were huge productions that you couldn't even get close to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're on a stage.
Yeah.
You can't even get close to them to see what's going on. What I really drew me in with David Blaine is that he was like a street performer.
Yes.
So in his shows, most of his card tricks are either somewhere, it shows him on the streets, you know, wherever. He was in one of the Dallas Cowboys locker rooms, you know, doing it for the teammates and the coach, and just blowing people's minds, you know, right there with no lights, no stage, no distance. You know, he did this levitation thing, and that's the only thing I thought was a little bit wonky about it, you know.
Right.
The filming of it, you know, was a little unstable and like, what's going on?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I saw that
but
one.
I can't really definitively say if he can or can't, but he can do some. I mean, he held his breath for.
He has the world record for 17 minutes and 4 seconds.
You're not supposed to be able to live, you know.
No.
That long underwater.
He's practicing a breathing control, which is a superpower.
It's a form of, I think he has to meditate it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wonder, I'd love to like talk to him, because I wonder when he's doing these stunts and he has to like sit in these things, or some of them are for days.
Yeah, the
like,
ice thing.
I wonder what he's doing. Is he meditating? So let me tell you a few of the things that he's done that have stood out the most to me. You can go to his website. I think it's davidblaine.com if it's not just Google search him. But I really, really find him and his videos fascinating. One of them that he did is I can't remember where it was, but he stood in these Tesla coils, in between these Tesla coils, and was electrocuted with 1 million volts for 73 hours. And it's a video. You see him. You see the volts going into him. You see him just standing there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a little bit superpower-ish.
Yes. Yes, it is.
I'm going to have to say.
So I can understand why people might be like, whoa, that's a good illusion. How's he doing that? I don't know how he's doing that, but it's the superpower. It's not mirrors. Let's see. He caught a bullet in his mouth. He had a cup in his mouth, and he caught a .22 bullet within the cup. But then he also did it in 2015 in front of a live audience. So that's pretty impressive to be able to catch a bullet like that, you know?
I still don't see it as like catching a bullet.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like, if anything, he's just, how do I put this? He's
lining
just
up right where the bullet goes into the cup.
He's
and that's
just
the end of it.
Basically providing the cojones to stand
Right.
there and hold that cup in his mouth and hope that sharpshooter, who's probably very skilled
Oh yeah,
at hitting bullseyes,
yeah,
hoping he can stand still enough to do this.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like he's catching a bullet, because it's not like he's moving around and going,
Right.
here it comes, I can see it. I mean, that thing's moving so fast. How do you really see it?
There was something different about the second time. There wasn't a cup involved, I don't believe, but I can't tell you exactly what that was, but you can see all of this stuff on his website. All the videos are up there.
But I mean, hey, I wouldn't
do it. Nope. One of the things that really pushed me about the animal telepathy was one of the stunts he did was called Dressed for Dinner. And what this was is swimming with great white sharks.
Wow.
Can't remember where they took him to, but it was off the coast of some country with a lot of sharks. They said there were a couple dozen sharks, and he was just there with them. And at first they just had him in the water and he was holding his breath. And then they gave him like a breathing apparatus so he could stay under there longer. And then he got on this thing, kind of looked like a, I don't know, a rocket or something. And he laid on top of it. It was like a motor to move him around a little bit. And he was reaching out and touching the great white sharks. And none of them even reacted to him at all.
Wow.
And I believe that there's a few things happening here, but the animal telepathy is definitely one of them. He was telling those sharks, I'm okay. Now, I do this with animals, wild animals, when I see them. Uh-huh. But they don't come up to me or anything like that. I'm not Snow White or something. But it's not as easy as just telling them, I'm not going to hurt you.
Right.
Because I can say that to the birds outside as I'm bringing them food, and they'll still leave. So, he's doing something special to make them understand that he's not going to hurt them. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's see.
He has to be doing something.
Yeah.
He has to be.
There's a lot more of these. He was in the ice. I can't remember how long that was for. All of these he does publicly, too. So you can see him.
Right.
When he was in the ice, you could see him. You could see him buried underground so that people know he's not resting at home somewhere when you think he's buried underground for 72 hours.
Right.
So it's pretty impressive. And then there was another guy that they were talking about in some of these articles named Uri Geller. And he is an Israeli-British psychic, magician, and illusionist. He's known for spoon bending.
Okay.
And he also demonstrates remote viewing, and he can make watches stop or run faster.
Wow.
And he's done these things in person, in front of people. I absolutely 100% believe in being able to make the watches stop and start. Yeah. The spoon bending, that's absolutely, The way he does it, though, is not with his mind. I thought when I heard about this guy, bending spoons, he was doing it with his mind, looking at a spoon and it's bending. That's not what's happening. What he was doing was using the heat off of his hands, and that's using energy, which makes way more sense than using your mind to bend the spoon.
Right.
Because he's rubbing his hands together, making the energy, right? And then he takes a spoon, and in one of the videos I watched, he put his thumb onto the back of the spoon, and when he lifted it up, there was an indention from his thumb on the spoon. It had melted.
Wow.
And how he bends the spoons is he just has this way of, on the edges, he just rubs along the edges of the spoon, and he makes it give out, and then it just breaks. I was like, whoa.
That's incredible.
That's wild. Yeah. But absolutely possible.
I had energy. A friend years ago, and he told me a story. He was a really good guy. No reason I wouldn't trust him. But he was like, I lived in a neighborhood, and when we were younger, and there was a bunch of boys in the street that lived on the street, and there was this one little younger guy. And I don't know what the story, how it even got started, but they told him that, bend the spoon with your mind. Uh-huh. And this kid did it.
Wow.
And they were all completely floored. Mm-hmm. And he said he went back. I think he even brought the spoon or told his parents what he had done. Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh, no. That's according to their religion. That's
right.
Whatever, this or that. It's bad. It's wrong.
Demon or
and
something,
so
probably.
The next time they tried to hang out together and see if he could do it again, he was not able to do it.
Yeah.
But he didn't say anything to me about rubbing it.
Yeah. I didn't know that that's what it was until I watched him, and that definitely makes more sense.
And they showed it in Men That Stare at Goats.
The spoon bending?
Yeah, just one quick second.
Yeah. Yeah, they showed, that's a really funny movie, actually.
It was good.
It was entertaining, yeah. They show a lot of these types of things, being able to walk through walls, those types of things. So let's talk about some of the different superpowers.
Yeah.
So the one that people wanted to talk about the most was telekinesis, which is moving objects with your mind.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a few different ways. There's actually quite a few ways that you can do the movement of the objects. So you can make an object levitate. You can get it to where like it actually moves, like comes to you or whatever, or moving to another location. So those are all encompassed in the telekinesis.
Yeah.
I read some things on how to do this, and so I tried. But again, these things they take time. So was I able to levitate the object? No.
Right.
But what they said to start with was to take a pen without a cap. So it's just, regular round pen, and then put it on the table in front of you. And then there's a whole list of things. You can go online and look up how to do this. A list of things of how to, to relax your mind, and then what to look at and how to focus on this. And one of the things that it says was like the push-pull method, which we kind of use for the astral projection too, where you're exiting your body. But with this, you're imagining the pen coming to you, and you're pulling it in your mind. So yeah, I truly believe that this is possible.
Yeah, I do too.
Will I ever be able to do it? I don't know, but maybe.
I think with anything, it takes practice, and it takes a deep concentration, which requires a meditative state, I think.
Yeah. Yep. The listeners also believe that this was the most likely to be real of all of the superpowers that we had listed for them. So I definitely believe it. I was trying to find videos of people doing it, but the problem is you don't know what's real and what's fake. So it's hard to kind of get those things.
It is tough.
Yeah. One of my favorite topics, because when it comes to this, because one of my favorite movies is Star Wars, is the Force. And it was weird because I've always been a Star Wars fan. I became more of a fan, lived with my brother in my 30s, and he was a huge Star Wars fan, and so I really, really got into it then. And so then when I started using my abilities, I was like, the Force is real. The Force is real. The Force is real. Like, what's going on? The Force is real. Okay, so what is the Force? Because this is something that our listeners, they said they wanted to talk about, and that they believe could be real as well. So encompassed in the Force, if you've seen the Star Wars movies, are a lot of different things. These are Jedis that can use all kinds of different ways of mind control. But they used in Star Wars breath control. And they use that to escape dangerous situations where you lower your breathing so that you're not sensed. But that's also like what David Blaine is doing, is he's using breath control so that he's into a meditative state to, but you can do it several ways with that. Okay, and then Jedi mind tricks. If you remember in Star Wars, Obi-Wan said, these aren't the droids you are looking for.
Right.
Okay, that's mind control.
Right.
That he was so easily able to just tune into that stormtrooper and say that and make the stormtrooper think that. That's a Jedi mind trick, but that's also mind control, which is believed to be real as well.
Yeah, I think that's definitely, especially in military and things like that, I think they're using that.
It's similar to hypnosis.
Yeah.
It's like putting somebody in a hypnosis really, really quickly. And there's no reason why that's not possible.
Right.
And if you've never been hypnotized or seen a hypnotist, go online. Danny's been to one. He'll tell you it's real.
Oh, yeah. And I was the guy that was going there to prove it to be fake.
Yeah.
So I could tell you it's real.
Yep. Something else with the Force that I never even thought about is Force empathy. And what that is like a form of the psychic ability. But so there was one scene where I believe it's Obi-Wan. He said, I felt a great disturbance in the Force. And he talks about, I believe this is when Alderaan is blown up, and he talks about that he can feel it. He can feel the people dying, or that's Force empathy, they call that, which is basically just empathy, but using your telepathy and psychic abilities. Yeah, I think
that part of what we were feeling, before the insurrection at the Capitol, and some of the visions maybe that we were seeing, were along those lines. It was like Force empathy. You could feel that something bad
Yeah.
is coming.
For sure, yeah. And then this takes it one step farther, because when Obi-Wan does this, he is actually connecting to the situation at the time that it is happening. I've had that happen in a couple of instances. I've had, especially with our Great Dane, where like he's been at daycare and all of a sudden I'll just know that he's not okay.
Right.
Like he's got bad foot problems or whatever. So what is that? Is that me picking up on that, or is that him talking to me? But this is kind of, like, as you just feel it. There's something right now is happening. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Force telekinesis, which we saw by them just, bringing stuff to them, or like Darth Vader's chokehold.
Yeah.
That's force telekinesis.
There is a lot of interwoven sort of things in that movie. It's incredible.
That's why, like, when we talk about life imitating art, there's more to it than we realize.
Oh, yeah.
Like, these sci-fi movies, they're sci-fi, but they come from somewhere. And, I'm a writer. We're creative people. We can come up with things. However, I know now that my book or books are going to be written more by the other side, and I'm just the conduit. I'm just what it's coming through. And I think that with a lot of these movies, that those little things are given as well, and for a reason.
Yeah.
Because they are somewhat real, in certain degrees. And it, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like almost like the more you don't try to take credit for it, the more you'll be given those types of messages, ideas, feelings.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to something creative. It's not to discount you as an individual and what a great piece of work you've done.
Right.
But it's to acknowledge that there's something greater that it comes from.
Right, exactly.
Within you.
Yeah.
And, it reminds me a lot of, I've seen a couple interviews, and I've mentioned it before, about Eddie Van Halen saying, I'm pretty sure he didn't know how to read or write sheet music. But he said, this guy was a genius. And he said, where do ideas come from? I'm just a channel.
Yeah, I saw
it just
one of those,
comes through me.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That it just comes through me. There's nothing special about me. I just let it come through me. And same with musicians and with, all of these things, with movie writers even, that are putting some of what they feel and see into their movies, or like Soul. Disney Soul is a great example of, there had to be somebody connected on that writer's team that was either being fed this information or had these abilities, that has seen this before themselves, because it was way too accurate.
It's nice to see society embracing it a little more. Making this so that people that have these gifts, if you want to call them superpowers or not, don't, have to hide in a closet. They don't have to feel, different.
Right, absolutely.
It's like one guy might be a banker and one may not.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
No, we're all different, for sure. We all have different gifts and abilities, that's for sure. So, there's a lot of things within Star Wars that could be titled The Force, but watch it, and watch it differently now. And I'm not just pushing Star Wars, because I live it. But really, you'll see it now. Once you're like, whoa, wait, there's too many things. I'm not saying that force choking your neighbor is, going to happen, or even smart.
Right.
But, there's other things in this movie, too, especially the positive. The force is supposed to be used for positive.
Yes, it really is. And it's... There's, like I said, there's a lot of kind of metaphorical messages in that saga.
Right.
About a lot of different, maybe, ideas.
Right, absolutely. Let's talk now about shape-shifting. This is something that I never really gave any thought to as being real. I don't know if you're familiar with this at all. But shape-shifting is the ability to physically transform through superhuman abilities. This has shamanistic roots. All shape-shifting occurs in an energy level and is you matching the same pattern as the animal that you are trying to take shape of. And then once you match those qualities, you would change your appearance as well. So I used to watch a show with my brother called True Blood. And in True Blood, they have vampires and all of these things. And they had shapeshifters. So if I remember correctly, the whole thing behind this was, if the shapeshifter saw the animal, they could take form of it. So, like the main guy on the show that was a shapeshifter, he could turn into an owl, into a wolf, into whatever he wanted to turn into. I've never looked at that as possibly being real, but something interesting happened to me a few weeks ago that I talked to a guy that told me that he was taking form of a horse. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to deal with it. And sometimes you get people that maybe aren't on the up and up about what they're, they want to mess with the psychic or whatever. But I looked through this guy's profile and I kind of tried to tune in, and I did feel like he was struggling with some of these things that he was talking about, And what he was telling me was that he felt that he had a spirit guide that was a horse and that he was taking on physical characteristics of the horse. And so maybe this was what was happening to him. I don't know, but I was like, that's very interesting. And that this horse was the one that was guiding him through his life. I don't have really spirit guides that are animals. I've heard that it's possible.
Right.
But yeah, this is one of those that I don't know. I'm just not.
I could
not
see
real
a
sure
spirit
about.
animal, but I don't know about a spirit animal as a guide.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. But this is.
I could be wrong.
This is something that, I don't know. It's anything's possible.
So he felt physically that he was taking on characteristics?
Yeah.
I mean, he's not like out at dinner and going to neigh at the table or something.
Yeah, I kind of think that might have been what he was. Yeah, some of the problems of like horse behavior and if I remember correctly in True Blood, that was one of the things that they kind of showed was not knowing what was happening, but having these feelings of being like the animal.
I'm just hesitant to say never. Never say never. Really,
We don't know.
I'm not hesitant to say. I'm usually quick to say never. Say never.
Yeah,
because I don't know.
No, we don't know. But it is an interesting concept to think that could be possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think on my list, actually, so I asked the listeners what they would pick if they could have any superpower, and third on the list was shape-shifting.
Wow.
Yeah. First was moving objects, second was teleportation, and third was shape-shifting. I don't know that would be high on my list. It just seems like a lot of work. And, I think I'll
draining.
Yeah, exactly. It seems a lot more draining than just leaving your body, like leaving the body behind and taking the soul and seeing what you want to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's okay. So what other superpowers? Teleportation was one I had just mentioned. Is teleportation itself possible? Can you stand in a room and think yourself into another one? Well, physically, I don't think so. Maybe it's possible. But if you look at this on a different level, if you look at it on a mental level, absolutely you can, because that's remote viewing.
Right.
But physically, that would be cool. I would love that.
Yeah. Again, it's hard to say,
Right.
I feel like I don't want to say, no, that's impossible. Why? Because religion says it, or because science says it, or because...
Right.
Well, who's anybody?
Right, exactly.
Nobody knows how the heck we got here to begin with. So
I think a lot of these things we probably could do very easily at the beginning of mankind. And then, as things went on and people started to look at these as witchcraft or whatever. And then,
that's why it's important for the age of enlightenment to kind of come back around.
Right.
Just like everything goes in cycles, I'm
Yes.
sure somewhere down the road, even if we came out of this and it's another age of enlightenment and umpteen years of peace, that they'll go through a dark time again.
Absolutely.
It just, everything goes in cycles. It's like hills and valleys. It's like this energy wavelength that we're all riding. And it's
So
just
true.
like hills and valleys. Just exactly how you would see it on a computer screen,
Right.
That kind of feeling to me sometimes. So that's part of the experience, because if you were always at the same frequency, what are you really learning except that frequency?
Yeah. I think that for some of us, for us for sure, one of the goals is to raise that frequency, to get closer and closer to, however high we can vibrate as creatures here. You know, that's one of my goals. How many of these abilities can I open? I never really looked at that until recently, and then when I saw how easy the remote viewing is, I was like, oh, what's next? What are we going to open next?
Right.
You know, that's why I want to work more on the telepathy. But, you know, hey, if I could be, you know, even 80 years old in a wheelchair and levitate, cool. Yeah. Let's do it, you know.
Somebody introduced me to a book years ago, I probably mentioned, which is called Illusions by Richard Bach, and it's about a guy that lives in Ohio, and he meets an airplane mechanic, and they're both airplane enthusiasts, and this airplane mechanic is like kind of a modern day shaman, I guess, so to speak, and he teaches this guy about mind over matter.
Yes.
And about the ability to do certain things to the point where this guy's able to walk through walls.
Yep.
By simply, it's not simply, there's a lot to it,
Yeah.
but believing first and foremost it's possible, but he has to change his energy.
Right.
And we have other books like the Bible, that's one of the oldest books ever, that talks about Christ walking on water.
Yep.
And it talks about Moses parting a Red Sea. Well, in another book that I've experienced is Dolores Cannon, called Jesus and the Essenes, which is incredible because it talks about the community that Jesus and John the Baptist went to when they were very little and studied and trained before they went out to what we would call today evangelize people, you know, and that's not what they were doing.
Right.
But they were carrying on some of the same practices that they were taught by the Essene community. But we know by accounts that people witnessed things happen, right?
Yeah.
And these stories have gone on and on to live. So something says to me, well, yeah, there's got to be some truth to this if this has lasted in a book this long, right? And then the way that Dolores gets into it is, you know, taps into this past life regression session with one of our clients who happens to be one of the Essene leaders that taught Jesus and John at a young age. And they're sort of explaining it because our translations of Bibles are different, you know.
Right.
That they're able to manipulate bring their energy, their vibration, their frequency to match that of which they are sort of trying to mirror.
That's right.
And so they said in a further explanation of that is that no, he didn't actually walk on water. He levitated above the water. Because walking on water would mean you're interrupting.
Right.
And we all know that our gravity, our weight, and versus the mass of the water and all that isn't possible.
Right.
So he's manipulating his energy. He's showing us right in front of our eyes something that's going to be written down and last forever, and that's a reason why it was written down and lasted forever.
Right. It was just taken wrong.
It was just taken wrong,
Yeah.
but it was to show us the amount of power we have within us, because he again says constantly, I'm like you, we're all the same.
Right.
Even with Moses, they sort of explain, no, they didn't part the Red Sea, because then you're interrupting with the environment,
Right.
the ecosystem. That would do major damage, and that's not what they're about. They changed their frequency, but then that exodus was thousands of people, right? So what about if everybody didn't believe that they could? It didn't matter. It's like tilting the scale.
The believers were
It takes 1% to tilt the scale. So the believers is what made everybody levitate and move across this in order to exit, out. Even down to the death of Christ, where she explains through Sadid, I believe is the man's name, something like that.
Yeah.
And he explains about once Christ is hung on the cross and crucified and he's put in the tomb, he does not just disappear and walk out of the tomb.
Right.
Okay, it's not what happened. He used his energy from the other side to disintegrate the remains of his body with the help of other, like, masters, to be gone, so that the shroud was pretty much all that was left.
It's just energy.
Just energy.
Yep.
But they focused it enough to try to show you that it's all possible.
Right. You know how when you're in a room and there's a lot of people that are like high energy, you feel that energy too? That's kind of how I think this works too. It's like, okay, so now that I know about my psychic abilities, there's nothing that you could possibly say to me to make me believe that they're not true.
Right.
So if I went into a room with non-believers, I'm still that 1% and I'll still have my abilities and I'll still be able to do what I'm supposed to do. However, if all those people in the room believe what I'm doing, it's going to be more magical. And it's just like that with anything else. It's like the more belief, the more energy that there is for you to do these things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's all energy.
It's collective, too. It has more strength. So that's why I think it's sort of important for the world to come into a new age.
Right.
And collectively see and experience and feel these things so we can realize the power of our energy together, also individually, but together.
Right. Yeah. Here's another little movie that I just was thinking about. And Peter Pan, I don't know if you remember this, but Tinkerbell, there's times where, I can't remember what the whole premise is, but that she's going to die. And that if people don't clap their hands, that she'll die. Or at least I did the play, Peter Pan, and that was the whole thing. You got to clap your hands or Tinkerbell's going to die because, people don't believe in fairies. That's what it was.
Oh, right.
So you have to believe in fairies. And if you believe in them and you clap and you bring your energy up, then the fairy comes back to life. But like in Hook, he's like, I don't believe in fairies. And she like keels over dying, That's exactly right. If you don't believe, then it's not real. But if you believe and you put that energy into it, anything's possible. Right. Fairies are possible. That's all. Dolores talks about all that too.
Oh, she does.
She
absolutely does. And now it's kind of ironic because you see this now like popping up where, some of them don't look real great, but some of them you're kind of going, But videos where like somebody spotted a fairy in their backyard. So it's it's a matter of perception, and I realize more and more about how much we just go to school and we learn for the first at least the first 12 years of our lives what these textbooks say in a general sort of way about our world and our existence. And we're not encouraged to question it.
Right, that's right. That's right. We don't question it because we're kids and we don't know.
And look how much has changed in textbooks now since the time that we graduated from school till today.
I wish that they would give kids a chance to make up their minds more than just saying, this is how it is, and so be it. Because this isn't how it is.
No, if we don't encourage people to think outside the box, we're never going to advance as much as we want to as a civilization. Right.
I can tell you that since my mom died, there have been so many supernatural things that have happened to me and so many things that I've seen people do that I absolutely believe in these abilities. The first time that I saw telekinesis kind of in action was my mom's best friend, who recently, like when I came out of the closet as being psychic, she finally fessed up, even though my mom her entire life called her a witch because she would like say something and then it would happen or whatever. But she had these abilities, but she hadn't confirmed that at the time of this story. So anyways, we went to the cemetery where my mom is buried at, and I want to say it was like a year or so after she died, and she was always putting pinwheels on my mom's tombstone area. And there was a pinwheel, and she said, hey, Linda, make that spin right. And I swear to you, it spun to the right. And she said, okay, now make it stop. And it stopped. And I was like, no way. And she did it for a while. And everything that she told it to do, it did. And I was like, what's happening? What universe is this?
Yeah.
Where now I totally believe it because I've done it myself. I've kind of tried to show you. Like, I hate to say, like, watch my superpower because then I'm afraid it won't happen. But I've shown you that I can make things stop. Like, there was a noise coming from the fan. What do you call that thing? In the garage? Like it's turns.
Like an exhaust.
Yeah, like an exhaust, right? And it was making this horrible squeaking sound. And I was like, watch, I'll get it to stop squeaking. Well, I can't make it stop squeaking if it's doing the same thing that it's doing, but what I can do is make it stop moving. And that's exactly what happened.
Right.
But if you sit with it, it's not something that you maybe can control if you let that feeling go, if your vibrations start to drop. So I think it was like that for like 20, 30 minutes. And then I started talking about something that was like upsetting or lowering my vibrations, and it started squeaking again. And I'm like, but you go right back to it and it stops. So I truly believe that. I truly, truly believe that that's possible. Another one that I believe is possible that I didn't talk about with the group is called atmokinesis, and that is weather control. We talk about, rain dances, okay? That's, Native Americans do rain dances, and I say all the time we should go outside and do a rain dance. I truly believe that. It doesn't work all the time. I think you need to collectively work on this. I
agree.
But I truly believe that if there's enough people that believe that they can bring rain to the area, that they can do it. I've seen it happen. Our weather here, I don't know if you remember, there were a couple of days that it was like, what the hell's going on? Yeah. It was like people were controlling it. It's very, very possible.
The energy has its own, right, like atmosphere. It has its own magnetic field. It has its own energy. We as well. And we really could.
Right.
We really could not control, but we could help our planet.
Oh, yeah.
Just by, if we knew this.
Right.
And everybody tapped in at like some point of the day together. Mm-hmm. It would do it.
It really would. It's just the positive energy. It's like, I don't know if you've seen this experiment, but they did an experiment with plants where they had one plant, they treated them exactly the same, except they talked to them differently. Mm-hmm. They were mean to the one plant and it died, and the other one flourished. And it's the same with people. It's the same with all of this, that if you talk to something positively, if you talk to the atmosphere and say, we need rain, and you're all doing it collectively, that positive energy will make it happen.
I agree.
I really believe that with a lot of these things, that it's that mind over matter. You said it earlier. And I saw it in so many articles. It's mind over matter. Right. You have to truly believe that you can do these things.
Right. You have to work together.
Yeah. I have a very strange superpower that has happened to me that I've only talked about with you and Chelsea. And I guess I'll go there. When I touch something that should burn me, it hurts for a split second and then it doesn't burn me. I don't hold the burn. It doesn't hurt. So that is a very strange one. And I wasn't going to say anything to you or to anybody about it because I felt like it was a coincidence. But it has now happened every single time that I've burned myself in the last 2 years. And that's been a lot. That I have had no marks, I have had no pain, and burns are one of the most painful things. Yeah. I looked this up online. Somebody please explain this to me. There was nothing. Wow. I don't have that control with any other type of pain. I have a lot of headaches, so I'm not in control of my pain. Right. So where that comes from, I don't know.
That's weird.
The other thing that is weird is that I had mentioned the medium that I talked to a few weeks back. And she had said about my fingers that I have a lot of pain in my fingers and my hands. And I had mentioned to you that it was getting worse. And I was really worried about how, as I got older, if this is cold related, how this is going to feel. And she said, it is not physical. It is not something that a doctor will show you. It's your abilities. It has something to do with your abilities. And I don't know what. I'm like, what? Can I move things? Like, what is it? Right. How does that correlate with my psychic abilities? So maybe we'll find out. But I think that anything's possible. And so, like, one of my goals is to just keep trying these things and to believe that I can do them. And the more that you believe that you can do them, Yeah. I mean, you see me shut up other people's dogs around here. That's animal communication, not necessarily a superpower. But if there's a dog barking and I get into the zone enough and I tell them to be quiet, they do. They're quiet. And with the birds, too. So all these things, very, very, very possible. Yeah. Calling them superpowers and using them in movies, I think, is what makes us believe that they're not.
Yeah, it's a bit over-traumatized, just like most of Hollywood.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I asked our listeners if they've ever had an experience that makes them believe that they have a superpower. And 70% said no, that they have not. But I want to talk to the other 30%. One of the girls I went to school with in junior high and high school, and I asked her, I'm like, I really want to know what these things are, because she commented and she said, I've pretty much experienced all of them, and I can tell you that they're all real. And I'm like, well, can you talk to me? Like, tell me. She was really busy this weekend, so she couldn't talk to me before we recorded. But she's Native American, and so I'm sure she has a lot of great experiences. And so I'm hoping to talk to her, and maybe I can even come back next week and share some of what she has to say.
That'd
because
be cool.
It is really hard when you're, looking for research on these things to know who you can trust as far as videos you're watching.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always nice to have like a firsthand account from somebody that you know. And I know she has abilities because she's shown me that.
Right.
So it's, those are the types of people I really would like to talk to. So if anybody listening has had those types of experiences, message us.
Share.
Yeah, share for sure. So yeah, that's Superpowers.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot more to them. There's a lot of, there's long lists. Like if you go to the Wikipedia and look up Superpowers, there's a long list, but some of them are very negative. Some of them are redundant. And some of them actually, another one is the healing and the medical side of things. And I would like to do a whole episode on that because I absolutely believe that it is possible for us to heal ourselves.
Well, remember the show we watched? The series, darn it, what was it called?
Recently. Oh, the Surviving Death.
Yeah, Surviving Death. And the older lady that channels the deceased doctor. And the way that man kind of came in and he just looked so tired and he
just had been
worn
sick for
down.
so long,
And they really couldn't figure out what was wrong with him.
Yep.
And she just kind of laid her hands on him. He laid on a bed, and she sort of rubbed his shoulders, sitting at the above his head, at the head of the bed, and just kind of channeled this man. And she talked like him. It was it was funny.
What's the name of the alien? I can't remember. We talked about him. Oh, Bashar. It's similar to Bashar.
Similar, but this man was alive on this planet in a previously, and was a medical doctor, and she just sort of rubbed him, and this guy just like cried.
Yep, he released it.
He like let it all out.
Yep,
and you could see it.
Yep.
Right afterwards, his color was like back a little, and
he was just full of energy that he hadn't had in a long time. It was beautiful. Yeah,
it was really incredible.
One of the things that I was told at the very beginning of my spiritual journey, and I wrote it in my journal as a prediction, was that I'm a healer. And as time goes on, I can see that because I can, even if like it doesn't work all the time, I wish it did. But like if I have something that's really bothering me, like my head or whatever, sometimes I just have to like tune into that area and like balance the chakra or physically remove the pain myself. And I believe that I can do it. And I've done it. I've done it with our dogs. Yeah. It's easier for me with the dogs than it is with people. Right. But I do want to do a whole episode on that. There's mediums that this is what they do. They're healers. They teach you how to heal yourself. So yeah, we'll have to do an episode on that as well. Put it on my list.
Write it down.
Write it down. I'm going to do that because I will forget. I'll be like, what was that I said we were supposed to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
So healer. Yep. Yay.
Well, very cool. Another widely expansive topic too, covers so many different things, but it just sort of keeps bringing me back to this. Everything is one. It really is one. If we would just look at it like that.
That's right. Instead
of, but I'm Danny Jones and I have a right to be my own individual. If we work together more, we would see such a difference in the way these things work in our world.
Yep. And if we just gave them a little bit of a chance, because, I used to be a skeptic about all of this stuff,
Me too, yeah.
I went to psychics myself and was still skeptic. So I totally understand people being like, no. But the deeper I get into it, the more I'm like, okay, what's the next thing that I want to uncover here? Because there's a lot that we don't know about.
Yeah.
And a lot that, is possible. So I'll be your little experiment type person here that tries to do all these things and, what's possible and what's maybe harder and, because I don't think I'll be able to walk through walls anytime soon. But hey, again, if I'm 80 and I'm like, wait, I can do this, and I do it, then hey, you know.
Well, you might end up having your own Saturday morning cartoon.
Hey, right? You never know. Yeah.
That's funny.
Oh, boy.
No, that was cool.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, before we say goodbye to our friends, we hope that everybody got something out of that. I thought it was pretty cool.
Good.
But before we say goodbye, you want to share your page?
Yes, you can find everything on my website, SamanthaJonesPsychicMedium.com. Or if you'd like to message us, spiritualjoneses@gmail.com. We also have a TikTok now, which is at Spiritual Joneses. And I'm really enjoying that. I'm doing a lot of videos and getting to know people. So I highly recommend, if you have a TikTok, check it out.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Much better than Facebook, but don't tell Facebook I said that. It's just so much more positive and upbeat, you know?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So anyways, your turn.
Oh, thank you. For my art, djonesartcollection.com for the web, at djonesartcollection for Facebook and Instagram. And for the music, gypsybrown.com for the web, at gypsybrownmusic for Instagram, and at gypsybrownband for Facebook.
Yay.
And that's it for me.
Very good.
We hope everybody has a wonderful week.
That we do.
And until next week,
Peace and love.